and about e-banking. So the third short case scenario is a 40-year-old man comes with a complaint of swelling of the upper and lower lid, not associated with vein. It is slowly progressing in nature. On examination, firm painless swelling of the upper lid, size about 5 millimeters by 4 millimeters, not involving the margin. Lashes are normal. On eversion of the lid, swelling is seen more on the conjunctival side. So, what's the importance of knowing whether the margin is one and whether the lashes are normal or not? So, whenever there is swelling of the lid is there, it could be inflammatory swelling, it could be a neoplasm. When it is neoplasm, you have to differentiate whether it is a benign neoplasm or malignancy. So, to differentiate between a benign neoplasm and the malignancy is if it involves margin, there will be rounding off of the inner margin in malignancy. As I told you while taking the lid classes and anatomy of the lid, lid has got two margins, outer margin and inner margin. Inner margin of the lid is 90% sharp and it approximates to the curvature of the globe. So in the neoplasm of the lid, if the inner margin gets round off instead of being a 90% sharp, it is a sign of malignancy. And when there is lashes fall off along with the swelling. If you see a lid swelling and lashes are not there, there's another sign of malignancy. The third sign of malignancy is presence of telangiectatic vessels. So whenever you examine a swelling on the lid, you should ascertain whether the margin is involved or not. If margin is involved, look for the inner margin, whether it is rounded off or not, or it is maintaining 90-degree sharp normal anatomy. Look for the lashes, whether they are normal or there is falling of the lashes is there. And while taking the lid anatomy and lid inflammation, I told you lid has got two lamellae, anterior lamella and posterior lamella. Anterior lamella consists of skin orbicularis oculi lashes, whereas posterior lamella consists of tarsoconjunctiva and meibomian glands. So the chalazion, the case which we are discussing, is the pathology of the posterior lamellae of the lid. So when you see a case of chalazion, you will see the swelling like this. Because it is an inflammatory swelling, margin will not be involved and lashes will be normal. And when you avert the lid, you see the swelling more on the conjunctival side. These are the two separate cases. This is upper lid and this is the lower lid chalazion. So whenever this case is kept, what are the questions asked? So the examiner will ask you, how will you differentiate between a chalazion and a stye? Chalazion is the pathology, as I told you, is the pathology of the posterior lamella of the lid. When you recollect your anatomy of the lid, anterior lamella of the lid and posterior lamella of the lid will unite, and the separation is seen as a gray line on the margin of the lid. The structure in front of the gray line forms the anterior lamella of the lid, and in structure behind the gray line forms the posterior lamella of the lid. So, stye is the pathology of the lash. It is inflammation or infection of the root of the lash. Stye is also known as hordeolum externum. Okay, and stye is painful condition, acute inflammation, and you will see the pus pointing at the root of the lash. Whereas chalazion is the pathology, is the chronic pathology of the posterior lamella of the lid or meibomian gland. Whenever the meibomian gland openings open at the margin of the lid, and when the opening of the meibomian gland get clogged, the secretion of the meibomian gland will get pent up and granulomatous inflammation will occur in the meibomian gland and present as chalazion. So chalazion is a granulomatous inflammation of the meibomian gland when the opening of the gland gets clogged. Whereas stye will be the acute inflammation of the root of the lash. It is inflammation or infection of gland of mole or Zeiss. And then the next question, which is commonly asked when Calesian is kept, if you see a child who is coming repeatedly by Calesian, you treat the Calesian today and he is coming back after 3 months again with the Calesian. So what will you think? So the answer is you should rule out refractive errors. Uncorrected refractive error is one of the cause of repeated styes and Calesian. So whenever you see a child coming to your OP with repeated styes and Calesian, dilate and do the retinoscopy and rule out uncorrected refractive error. Uncorrected refractive error is one of the most common cause of styes and Calesian. And also look for the squamous blepharitis. Squamous blepharitis, as I told you, it is the dandruff at the root of the lashes. So if you don't treat squamous blepharitis, it will get converted into either ulcerative blepharitis or Calesian or stye. So you should treat the squamous blepharitis and correct the refractive error in the child so that the child should not come repeatedly to your OP. And another question is, what is the treatment of Calesian? The treatment of the Calesian is incision and curettage. So this is the in the afternoon session you will be shown this instruments. This is Calesian clamp and this is Calesian scoop. So whenever this instrument is given to you, the examiner will ask you, how will you apply this instrument? So the ring will come on the conjunctival side. This ring will come on the conjunctival side, whereas the plate will be on the skin side, as you are seeing here. The ring is on the conjunctival side, the plate will go on the skin side, and then you tighten the screw. This screw you will tighten. So if you do this maneuver, the hemostasis will be there and there won't be any bleeding when you incise the Calesian. The next question which is commonly asked is, how will you give the incision? Always on the conjunctival side, you will be giving vertical incision. Vertical incision. Why? If you remember the anatomy of the lid and blood supply of the lid, the meibomian glands open at the lid margin and they have the glands into the tarsal plate like this vertically. Okay. When you incise vertically, you will be opening up one meibomian gland only, which is affected. If you give a horizontal incision, you will be cutting more meibomian glands unnecessarily. The second reason is, if you remember the blood supply of the lid, medial palpebral artery and lateral palpebral artery will anastomose, and from this anastomosis, radial branches will be given. You can see here, the radial branches are being given vertical to the lid. That's how the blood supply to the lid will be. So when you give vertical incision, you will be injuring one vessel only. If you give horizontal incision, you will be injuring 2 or 3 vessels and there will be much bleeding. So these are the common questions which are asked. How will you apply the Calesian clamp? And then on the conjunctive side, how will you give the incision? The incision will always be vertical on the conjunctival side. Why? Because the meibomian gland, you will be cutting only one meibomian gland and you will be injuring only one vessel. As you can see here, if you carefully see the picture here, you can see the radial vessels which are being given. If you give vertical incision, you will be injuring one vessel. If you give horizontal incision, unnecessarily you will be opening up many vessels and there will be much bleeding. And the next question which is asked, commonly asked is, if a man of 60 years or 80 years, if he is repeatedly coming with Calesian, what will you think of? Always try to rule out malignancy. When you do a good Calesian surgery, after that, the old man is coming again with the swelling in the same position. Take a bit and send it for the biopsy and rule out meibomian gland carcinoma and do the treatment as required. Okay. So this is how the incision will be given by the 11 number Parker blade or 15 number is a Parker's blade. Vertical incision will be given and then you will pass the scoop and remove the pultaceous material which is present in the meibomian gland, and then prescribe topical antibiotic and steroid eye ointment and systemic antibiotics. So this finishes the third case or Calesian. Now we'll discuss about another important case which will be kept in your exam. This is the history will, in this case, will go like this. 60-year-old man come with the complaint of whitening of the black portion of the eye. He gives history of injury to the eye by glass blade while working in the fields, following which there was a redness of the eye, pain, discharge, which subsided by the eye drops prescribed by the doctor, but diminution of vision persisted and it was stationary. This is the typical history which will be given when eye is injured or cornea is injured by the grass blade in the agriculture laborer. On examination, there is a dense leucomatous opacity of the cornea. The opacity is about 4 millimeter by 5 millimeter in size. It is present on the in the optical zone. There is superficial vascularization of the cornea. Iris antechamber appears normal. Other details like pupil, lens not visible because of central position of the leucoma. So this is how the case will be. You can see a dense leucoma in the center of the cornea. Behind the leucoma, you are not able to see anything. If you carefully see, you can see a blood vessel growing from the cornea coming onto the leucoma, and it is arborescent in nature. So there is superficial vascularization is there. Okay. So whenever leukoma or corneal opacity is kept as a short case, the questions which are asked is exact location of the leukoma. Here it is centrally located, involving the optical zone. What is the optical zone? Optical zone of the eye is the portion of the cornea which lies in front of the pupil is known as optical zone. Okay? The portion of the cornea which lies in front of the pupil is known as optical zone. If any injury occurs in this position, there is a drastic fall of vision will to the eye through this only. The peripheral portion of the cornea doesn't participate in refraction. Only the small 4 millimeter diameter area in the center of the cornea, which lies in front of the pupil, will participate in refraction of the light, and light enters into the eye and patient will be able to see the things if this area is normal. If something happens in this area, inflammation, infection, or opacity, then will drastic fall of vision will be there. Okay. So whenever this type of case is kept, so what I told you in the examination findings, conjunctiva is normal, there is no redness, there is a big dense leucomatous opacity is there in the center of the cornea involving the optical zone. It is about 5 by 4 millimeters in diameter. And iris appears normal. And antechamber depth is normal. And you're not able to see the pupil and the lens because the leukoma is placed in the center. Okay. The questions which are asked is how will you differentiate between ulcer cornea and opacity? So opacity is present in the quiet eye. You can see here the eye is white, there is no redness, there is no watering, there is no discharge. Okay. So when you see a whiteness of the cornea in quiet eye, it is opacity. Ulcer will also look sometimes white or yellow, but there will be signs of inflammation will be there. There will be redness will be there. Circumcorneal congestion will be there. There will be discharge will be there. Photophobia will be there. Patient will not be able to open the lid properly because of the pain in the eye. So these are the basic difference. And the main important difference is when you stain the opacity, it doesn't take the stain. When you stain the ulcer cornea with 2% fluorescent sodium strip, the stroma of the cornea will take green color. This is the differentiating point between the leukoma cornea and an ulcer. Whenever the examiner asks you, how will you differentiate between a corneal opacity and ulcer cornea is, first you should say opacity will be present in a quiet eye, whereas ulcer will be present in eye which is inflamed. There will be all signs of inflammation will be there, like circumcorneal congestion, photophobia, redness, okay, and discharge. Whereas in leucomatous opacity or any other type of opacity, eye will be quiet and there won't be any photophobia, there won't be any redness. And the differentiating point is when you stain the cornea, the opacity will not take the stain, whereas 2% fluorescent sodium, when you stain the ulcer cornea, the stroma will take green color. You can delineate the ulcer by 2% fluorescent sodium stain, biostaining of the cornea. Okay? And sometimes the examiner will ask why it is not adherent leukoma. The definition of adherent leukoma is when iris gets attached to the corneal opacity. So it is known as adherent leukemia. When iris is not attached to the corneal opacity, iris C and AC is normal depth, then it is leukoma. So when iris comes and attached to the posterior portion of the opacity, then AC will become uneven. At place where it is attached, it will become shallow. At place where it is not attached, the portion of the AC will be antechamber will be deep. That's the differentiating point. So if you answer properly and well, the examiner will go into the depth of the subject and ask you, how will you differentiate between adherent leukoma and normal leukoma? Okay. So you should tell something. AC is uniformly deep in this case. That's why it is not adherent leukoma. In adherent leukoma, the iris will get attached to the posterior surface of the cornea. How adherent leukoma forms? Then they will ask. So if the patient had injury to the eye, ulcer develops, and when ulcer perforates, a patient has a penetrating injury. So what is thing is something which happens in a perforation is aqueous will leak, AC will become shallow, and the mobile portion in the eye is iris diaphragm. So iris diaphragm will try to plug that opening, try to seal the opening. That is a nature given protective phenomena. So when healing occurs, the leukoma will have iris incarceration into it. Got it? So to have a adherent leukoma, the patient should have had a penetrating trauma or perforated ulcer. These are the two prerequisites to develop adherent leukoma. And another question which they commonly ask is, how will you classify the corneal opacities? So corneal opacities can be classified as nebula, macula, and leukoma. So here in the first picture, you can see on the left eye, when the slit lamp is focused, you are able to see some opacity. Here the cornea is clear, but here you are seeing the opacity. Even though there is opacity is there, you are able to see the color of the iris, pattern of the iris through the opacity. So nebula is that opacity of the cornea, which is very faint, through which you can see the color of the iris, you can see the details of the iris, crypts and depressions in the iris can be clearly visible through a nebulous opacity. Most of the students will tell the pathological classification. Nebula will involve only anterior fibers, macula will involve stroma also, and then leukoma will involve the whole thickness of the cornea. That is the pathological classification. Clinically, how will you differentiate between nebula, macula, and leukoma? Is nebula is that opacity of the cornea which is faint in nature. When you see through it, you can see the color of the iris and you can make the details of the iris. Crypts and depressions in the iris will be clearly seen through the nebulous opacity. On the other hand, macula, the cornea will have the ground glass appearance. The same appearance which you have in the window panes. So when you put a ground glass in the window pane, you can see through that glass, but you doesn't know what is behind the glass, whether it is a rod or a stick. Similarly, in macular opacity of the cornea, you can see the color of the iris, but you cannot make the details of the iris. That is the differentiating point. Here you can see the brown color of the iris, but you are not able to make out the crypts of the iris or depressions in the iris as you are seeing here. So in nebulous opacity, you can see the color of the iris and details of the iris, whereas macular opacity is ground glass in appearance. Cornea will become ground glass in appearance. You can see the color of the iris, but you cannot make out the details of the iris, whereas leukoma is the densest opacity. It is opaque. You cannot see anything behind leukoma because the leukoma is centrally placed here. You are not able to see the pupil. You You are not able to see the lens. Okay. So these are the common questions which are asked when corneal opacity is kept as a short case. Then the examiner will ask, when this case is kept, he will ask, what are you going to do? How are you going to manage this case? So the visual rehabilitation to this case can be done only by penetrating keratoplasty. You have to remove this diseased corneal button and replace it with a donor button. It is known as penetrating keratoplasty. When you remove the whole button of the diseased button of the cornea and replace it with a transparent donor button, that procedure is known as penetrating keratoplasty. Then the examiner will ask, how will you get the corneal button, donor corneal button? And you should say it is because by eye donation. Then he will ask you, who will donate the eye? The main difference between eye donation and other organ donation is, other organ donation patient can do during his lifetime. See, if I want to donate my kidney, I can donate. If I want to donate my part of the liver, I can donate it during my lifetime. If I want to donate some part of the skin, I can donate. But I cannot donate the eye. For taking out the eye, the patient has to die. Within 6 hours, the eye has to be removed. That's the basic difference between eye donation and other organ donation. Okay. So if you answer properly and good, the examiner will go into the details of eye banking in this case. When this case is kept, they will ask you, what is eye donation? What is the basic difference between the eye donation and other organ donation? And how will you collect the eyes? So there are two types of collection of the eye. One is enucleation. You can remove the whole eyeball. So these are the various steps of the first year when you go for the eye donation call. Numbers will be given, displayed in the outpatient. So whoever wants to donate after the death of their relative, they can call that number and you can go with the team. You have to carry enucleation set, a sister and a ward boy and a doctor or a technician who is expert in removing the eyeball will go there. So first you have to confirm the death. Either you ask for the death certificate from the relatives or you yourself. If you are a doctor, you can certify the death. Look for the dilatation of the pupil and then carry a ECG machine. You should get a straight line in the ECG machine. Then you take the consent of the close legal hair signature that they are ready to donate the eyes. Then you ask the patient, other attendants to leave the room. The only surgical team will be there. You clean the eye as if you are doing an operation with the betadine and then apply the eye clamp and then do peritomy. Cutting of the conjunctiva 360 degrees close to the limbus is known as peritomy. So after doing peritomy, you separate the tenons from the sclera and then you start hooking the recti muscle. There are 4 recti muscles and there are 2 oblique. So you go on hooking the recti. This is the muscle hook. You pass the muscle hook and lift the recti muscle and cut the tendon at the insertion by a tenotomy scissors. So 4 recti you will be cutting like that and then for 2 obliques also you will cut. After that, the only structure which remains is the optic nerve. Then you pass the optic nerve spoon and lift the eyeball and cut the optic nerve and remove the eyeball and place this eyeball into the sterile bottle and keep it in the ice bag. And then you suture the conjunctiva and close the lid by suture tarsorrhaphy after placing a prosthetic eye. So it should not look disfigured body. So when you bring this eyeball to the hospital, you after giving an antibiotic bath, you will store it in the deep chamber of the refrigerator. The disadvantage of removing the whole eyeball is you have to use the cornea within 24 hours only. You can store in the deep chamber of the refrigerator for 24 hours only. Within 24 hours, you should have a recipient in which you can use this 2 cornea. Okay, that's the disadvantage of removing the whole eyeball and storing in the deep freezer of the refrigerator. The other method is you just remove the corneoscleral button as it is being done here. You cut the 1 millimeter of the sclera all around and then you cut the sclera with the cornea, and this whole button you will remove and place it in MK media. Store it in MK media and seal it, and then bring it to the hospital. If you store the corneal button, corneoscleral button in MK media, you can use it up to 7 days. Up to 7 days, you can store it in your hospital, look for the patient or wait for the patient. And if the patient comes, then you use that button. If you don't have the patient, you will have the numbers of the other corneal surgeons who are doing keratoplasty. So you can ask them, if you need a corneal button, we are having corneal button. You can send it to that place. So never waste the donated corneas which you have brought from the donors. So if you store it in MK media, you can wait up to 7 days. You can store the cornea up to 7 days. And there are other medium, K-Sol media, you can store up to 14 days. And then tissue media, you can store it up to 1 month. Cryopreservation is theoretical. You can store it for a lifelong, but it is still in experimental stage. Cryopreservation of the cornea. Indefinitely you can store. So it is not being practiced in India or anywhere else. It is in experimental stage. So you will be asked about how you will donate, how you will collect the eyes. You can collect the eye by eye enucleation, or you can collect only corneoscleral button. And then if you collect the whole eyeball, you have to store it in deep freezer of the refrigerator at 4 degrees centigrade, and then also used within 24 hours. If you are storing it in corneoscleral button in MK media, you can store up to 7 days and use it within 7 days. K-Sol media, you can store up to 14 days, and tissue culture media, you can store up to 1 month. So all these things, if you go on answering nicely, the examiner will go on asking you about the question. Okay. If you fumble in the first or second, then they will ask 1 or 2 questions and put the pass marks or fail marks, whatever it is, and they will leave you. If you answer very well, they will go on asking you all these details. So you should be, whenever a corneal opacity is kept, all these type of questions are asked in the exam. So we have seen a scenario in which the central cornea is opacified, or corneal opacity is involving the optical zone. There can be a situation wherein corneal opacity can affect the peripheral portion of the cornea. Optical zone will be clear. In this, the patient will have very minimal diminution of vision. The patient will maintain 6/9 or 6/12 vision. But if it is a marriageable age girl, so she had some hot oil fallen into the eye while cooking, or a machine worker or a mechanic, some foreign body has fallen into the eye. When you remove the foreign body, you will leave an opacity. So at the age of marriage, they will come, just this white opacity I'm not liking, though my vision is very good. So what to do? So in these cases, you can hide this opacity by prescribing a colored contact lens. Cosmetic contact lens you can give to the patient. And because the vision is normal, you don't have to do any keratoplasty. Because the opacity is present in the periphery, you can hide it by a colored contact lens. Okay. If there is any diminution of the vision also, you can prescribe that number in the contact lens. So refractive error can be corrected, and you can also hide this opacity if you prescribe a colored contact lens or cosmetic contact lens. So the examiner will ask you, if the opacity is present in the periphery, how are you going to? If some old timer come as examiner, facilities for the cosmetic contact lens are not there, what will you do with the peripheral opacity? So another method is tattooing. You can remove the epithelium and you can apply some gold salt. So black color will occur in that place, and it looks as if the patient is having normal cornea. But nowadays, no one is doing tattooing. When you have the access to colored contact lens and cosmetic contact lens, no one is resorting to destroy the epithelium of a normal cornea or healed cornea. So peripheral opacities can be hidden by cosmetic contact lens. Okay. So this is how the penetrating keratoplasty looks. When you remove the central opacified cornea and apply the donor cornea, you can suture it by continuous shoelace type suture or interrupted suture 16 to 32 you can put all around and wait for the healing. And if you tell about the penetrating canal, they may ask you what is graft rejection and graft failure differences. All these things we have covered in theory. While taking the theory in detail, we have talked to you about what is graft failure and what is graft rejection and what are the complications, okay, and what are the different types of penetrating keratoplasties. One is when you remove the whole cornea, it is known as penetrating keratoplasty. When you remove the only anterior lamella, it is known as DALK, deep anterior lamellar keratoplasty, which I taught you while taking about the pterygium case, lamellar keratoplasty. When only endothelium is deceased, the patient post-operatively, if the patient endothelium you have sucked, a bad surgeon has done very bad surgery or cataract surgery, and endothelium is lost. So, as you know, the endothelium is necessary to maintain the transparency of the cornea. So, when you suck the endothelium while removing the cataract, while aspirating the cortical matter, then the minimum endothelial count which is required to maintain the transparency of the cornea is 1200, 800 to 1200 is minimum count required for its millimeter square for cornea to remain transparent. If endothelial count falls below 800, the patient will develop bullous keratopathy. So the aqueous will enter into the stroma and stroma will become ground glass, as you are seeing here in this case. The stroma will become ground glass in appearance when aqueous enters into the stroma. Okay. So here the pathology is in the endothelium. So if you just remove the endothelium layer and transplant a new endothelium layer, it is known as DSEC, deep Descemet stripping endothelial keratoplasty, or DMEC, Descemet membrane endothelial keratoplasty. So if you replace the deceased endothelium with the new endothelium, the bullous keratopathy will go and patient will again start seeing normally. So in olden days, we used to tell, if you bring two eyes, you can give vision to two patients. When you only penetrating keratoplasty, we used to do. Nowadays, if you are bringing two eyes, you can give it, if you are doing penetrating keratoplasty, you can give vision to two patients. If you are doing the deep lamellar keratoplasty and dissect, you can give vision to four patients. Okay. So there is the importance of eye donation and visual rehabilitation, which you can do if the cornea is diseased or pathological. So this ends the case scenarios which are commonly kept in the exam. So as I told you, for long case, you will be 99% of you will be getting the cataract as a combination. In one eye immature, other eye mature, one eye immature, other eye pseudophakia, one eye hypermature, other eye immature, both eyes mature cataract, both eyes immature cataract. Any combination you can get. In short cases, in these four short cases plus pseudophakia and aphakia can also be kept as a short case. The four short cases which we have discussed in yesterday and today are corneal opacities and chalazion and chronic dacryocystitis and pterygium. These are the four commonly kept short cases in the exam. In addition to this, pseudophakia and aphakia can also be kept as a short case for you. So be thorough with these cases. So when you are going to appear for the exam, till this lockdown, whether it is getting removed or not, or we have to conduct online exam only, God only knows. So if you come to the hospital and do some posting, we'll also try to show you the live cases and try to discuss with you. If not, be satisfied with this. You can visit the YouTube and you can yourself also see the different pictures and videos. And you had enough of me. From next week, Dr. Madhura and Dr. Farah will start talking to you about the interesting cases If you will be posted in ophthalmology normally for 2 months. So in the span of two times, so in fourth semester and then sixth and seventh semester, you will be coming to the Department of Ophthalmology. Total of 2 months you will be spending in ophthalmology department. So you will be seeing many cases which may not keep in the exam, like ulcer cornea is there, fungal ulcer keratitis, and bacterial ulcer keratitis, keratoconus, like ophthalmos, seven palsies, and refractive errors or something. So many things will be there something other than these cases which are kept in the exam. So they will start talking to you about those cases, ulcer cornea. Give something, listen to them with patience, because that will be helpful to you in writing your theory exam. If the cases are not there, sometimes we will be forced to keep ulcer cornea also as a short case. So we try to see that you get this out of these cases only. If compulsion is there, then we cannot help it. So you have to be ready with ulcer cornea also, okay, as a short case. So from next week onwards, next Wednesday, either Dr. Madhura or Dr. Farah will start teaching you about other short cases and other cases which will not be kept in the exam, but it is better you know about those cases. In the 2 months span, if some interesting cases come, we demonstrate the science to the undergraduate. So which we will try to do it on virtual cases, okay? So be thorough with the cases which I had taught you, because that will you will pass your practical exam with more than 65% of marks. So if you are thorough which what I had taught, and if you do some extra help from your side, you will be able to score more marks and distinction.